guys? This is Dr. Traveler, and I'm here with Dr. Run, Think, Pray. And I'm really excited for today's episode. And if you're asking where I am today, I am on vacation. I was going to do this recording from out by the pool. But you know what? For those of you who are following this and watched the last episode, you know how big of a catastrophe the audio was from the last one. I've apologized before, and even in the beginning of that episode, I apologized. I am in this learning process, trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I had these little mics set up to do those interviews, and it just didn't work. So I would encourage you, though, that if you're listening from the podcast, that you go to the webcast on YouTube. It makes a lot more sense. I'm trying to link together these videos, and I'm trying to figure out, and I am figuring out what I can put on, on YouTube and what works just as a podcast. So I'm figuring out some of this audio. Hopefully that's not going to be a mistake that I make in the future. I can't make any promises, but this episode should be better audio-wise. Also, I do want to say I am giving my race report from the marathon from last week, the St. George Marathon 2018. And on the webcast on YouTube, I'm going to try. Now I had a GoPro on. It was on my chest, and so I couldn't use a whole lot of it because for those of you who are experienced with GoPros and have ever worn one running, I probably should have had it on my head. But when I tried that out, it really drove me kind of crazy. And so it was on my chest. And so when I really get running, it just didn't work very good, the picture. But when I walk through the stations and things, then you can get some good ideas. And when you get to the finish line and everything that way. So if you want to get kind of an idea, and I'm going to be cutting in and out of that. So again, new stuff for me. If you're watching this on a webcast, and seeing just me sitting in a hotel room recording this, then you know that I couldn't figure out how to switch back and forth, and I'll need to talk to some friends again or watch more videos. This is a learning thing for me. And so here we go. But this is my race report. I'll give it from beginning to end, and then a few ideas and thoughts as I ran this St. George Marathon. So I started out, I woke up pretty early, woke up at about 3:45. So that already, people who are thinking, hey, I wonder if I should get into these marathons. If you hate to and never want to consider waking up early, then I would say that marathoning and a lot of running may not be for you. But as you will learn if you continue to listen to me, I am an advocate and a fan of waking up early. Not 3:45 early, but waking up early. So I had to wake up really early, and I did something that I don't get to do very often, or that I haven't done, and I got a ride. So I'll hopefully have that picture. I got a ride with my neighbor, and she is one of the sponsored runners, our healthology experts. So there's my plug for work. But we sponsored some runners. We had 8 on our team. And for the 8, 2 of us worked there, and Heather was one of our runners. And then we went and we picked up a friend of hers, Ryan. I just want to talk a little bit about Ryan. I do know her. She works at the school that my kids attend, the elementary school. She's a very inspiring gal. And interesting part about Ryan, she actually had chemotherapy the day before the race. And as I sat there and got that information, I thought, wow, just the idea of going 26.2 miles anyway is difficult, and it's a challenge you've got to wrap your mind around. I've never experienced chemotherapy. Hope that I never have to. But the idea from the stories that I've heard, this thought of getting chemotherapy and then running a marathon, I don't know. I sat there just really impressed with Ryan, and I think that kind of actually helped me kind of set the tone for the day of overcoming challenges. So then, anyway, we get out of the car, We go get on the buses. It was really fun. We got there pretty early because I learned the year before that if you don't get there early enough at the St. George Marathon, the lines just back way up. So got on the buses, rode up there, and right off the bat, you get off the bus, and I just love the energy. You get off the bus at the St. George Marathon, really most of the marathons that I've been to, but St. George does a great job at just the starting line atmosphere. Music and people, and they've got the fires, and there's just a lot. So, and a lot of them don't. A lot of times, you go up to the starting line, and it's just people huddled because usually it's a little bit chilly. But just a great atmosphere, really fun. I was planning on it being cold, so went to the local thrift store, went to the DI, bought a whole bunch of just ugly sweats and a sweatshirt. Not going to say ugly for you Ducks fans. It was an Oregon Ducks sweatshirt, but it was way too big for me, and then an old hat. So I was warm, had a really good time just walking around, trying to bring in that energy. Just had a really good time at the starting line, and really I had felt really good. I will give a little bit of a preface now. So in my training for this marathon, I was trying to one of my number one goals. I'm trying to seek a little more balance in my life, and so I had expressed to my wife that I want to be able to train for this marathon and not have you notice, or my wife and family notice much that I'm training for a marathon. In the past, I've had to say, oh, I can't do that because I've got to get to bed early. I've got to wake up really early for a long run. And so I would say that as far as preparing for the race, I felt prepared, but not quite as prepared to do a really fast run. I really, for the first time, I had said I'm kind of shooting for the finish line. I had an idea of a time shooting for maybe a 3:30 or 3:40, but I don't know. It was pretty flexible in my mind. And a lot of that was because of the training. A few weeks before that, my long run, and for those of you should hit, at least from what I've heard, about 20 miles or 22 miles. My longest run was 18 miles. And I had done it about 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before the race, sorry. And then I went out the next Tuesday. I did that run on a Saturday. On Tuesday, went out just to do a stretch your legs kind of run, and my Achilles just grabbed me. Felt a pop at about mile 2 on that just stretch out run, and I knew I was in trouble. I've injured that calf before, and I thought I'd gone through all this training, no problems, and this bit, and so I went into kind of panic mode a little bit, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to treat it. So I had both of our massage therapists working on it. Megan, who did a ton, Brian, who did some. They were just, grabbing it whenever I was lasering. And actually, my calf felt really good. I felt no pain going into it. I'd done a little run and felt a twinge in the run a week before. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I'll get over it. I'll do all this work on it. And so I felt okay. So anyway, now we're finally to the race. I know I'm like 8 minutes into this, and now we're finally to the race. And I start running, and I feel really good. I'm plugging along, feeling good. But before I even get out of mile 1, that right calf starts to get tight, and I start feeling it, and I kind of think to myself, okay, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna work out of it. And then at about mile 3, whack! I felt the slap that whoever has ever pulled something or known something was a problem felt the whack in the back of my calf, and it was pretty bad. And I kind of started to limp, and had I describe it as like a knife in my leg. And really, at that moment, I can honestly say, when I've done, so this was my 9th marathon, I had 2 firsts, and this is one of the first. This is the first time in a race that I actually thought I'm not going to make it to the finish line. And I thought, I'm done. There's really, that's fine. I'll feel okay. And so I actually asked someone at an aid station at about mile 3 and said, where's can I get in a bus to take me back, a shuttle to take me back to the finish line. And they had said, yeah, there should be one coming through, but they said there's one waiting at mile 7. I don't know if they actually knew. They just said a few miles up, there's one. And so I just kind of pushed forward. Now, from that moment, I'd kind of had this thought, okay, I'm done. I push forward, and I'm kind of limping. As I'm limping along, and I knew this would probably happen, but I started to feel a looser. Now, it was still grabbing me pretty bad. And here's your thought. For those, you can kind of picture it. Here I am, mile 3 of 26.2, and I'm limping, and my leg is just hurting me really bad. And so you're going, well, yeah, I mean, that's what was in my head. Another 23 miles, this is going to be the worst. And so that was my thought. But it started to loosen up. Then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was Ryan's experience with the chemo, or if it was that, I've expressed that I'm kind of moving from the warrior phase as far as my running and just life experience in general, warrior phase into statement phase and spiritual phase. I kind of really started to think and have that prayer in my heart of what am I supposed to learn, what am I supposed to gain from this. And I felt pretty strongly that it wasn't a great time. It was or a good race time. It was that I needed to get there, and I felt strongly that I could get there if I just pushed on. So by about mile 5, it started to loosen up, and I saw the shuttle at mile 7, and by then I thought I was still hurting. And I don't know, I'll maybe put it, because again, it's horrible camera footage, but you can see on the GoPro that I am definitely like leaning to one side. You see the camera kind of shift to one side, and anytime I was going downhill, I could kind of rest my calf, and so it actually felt okay going downhill. So I love the downhills. But as soon as I had to go uphill, Veo Hill so at mile 7, so most of it's pretty flat for the first few miles, and actually some nice little downhill. You come into a little town called Veo, and then Veo Hill is where you climb, and the climb is about a mile-ish, and it's a pretty steep one, and that's when it started to bite me. And that's again mile 7. So I ran past the shuttle going up this hill, and then you kind of have this gradual climb for about another 3 or 4 miles. It's not a steep climb, but just a nice little climb, but that's what I just felt. No, just run one step in front of the other. A lot of meditation, a lot of prayer, a lot of soul seeking. And I felt okay. Then I hit the halfway point, and about the halfway point, that's when it starts to go down, and you start to get really steep. And I will put some of this footage on, but I just felt so much gratitude. I looked down, and you're coming into Snow Canyon, and you see, God's creations, and again, I passed that. This is the 4th time I've run the St. George Marathon, but this more than in the past. I've always loved that. That's always been my favorite part of the race. It's fast. It's beautiful, but this time I really felt strongly that. That was one of the reasons why I needed to keep going, to experience that. And I felt good. Still felt my calf. The problem didn't go away, but I don't know, my ability to just push through it got stronger. So I'm plugging along, and then at mile 18, you have to climb another hill. It's a little one, but to me, that's always been the hardest part, because that's kind of when you're starting to really struggle, and now you've got to climb. And I did okay, and then I just kept thinking one step after another. And then for those of you who are watching, I've debated. This is about this podcast and webcast is about being physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy and well. And I really, to be honest, wanted to keep religion. Now, I wanted to let people talk about religion, But I was going to kind of leave that for me kind of a mystery. And I thought, that just doesn't work. Now, here's what I'm gonna say just going into this. I can talk about my beliefs. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I want this podcast to be open for anyone to express their beliefs and how they strengthen themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I can't help it. You're going to get that from me, but I'm going to try my hardest that hopefully you can look at it as just another perspective. But so the reason why I say that now is because this day just happened to be the day that we had what's called our general conference when who I believe to be prophets, seers, and revelators, and that's who I believe that I wanted to listen to that, and that was right when it started. So hit 10 o'clock, and anyway, I thought I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to link it up and turn off the music. I'd been listening to, the pump-up music to push you through and get you excited, and that worked. And then I got to listen to some conference of those people who I believe in to teach me more about Jesus Christ. And you know what? I just got lost in the moment, and it was kind of a blur. I was able to turn my focus to something other than the pain, and I just ran. And anyway, then you kind of come around, you travel down the hill into St. George, still kind of listening, but then my headphones started to have problems, so then everything just went off. I had no sound, no one talking, just the sounds of my footsteps and the crowd. And there were so many people, and I just felt so much gratitude again for the people, for the little girls that handed me, an Otter Pop, and all the volunteers. And I'd always been grateful for those people, but on that day in particular, I felt a lot. The people who handed us, with the last little stretch, there's people that hand out the cold washcloths, and it was just really good. And it hurt. I mean, I was hurting by this point. I was limping, and then there was a little boy who held up his hand, and I tried to high five everybody. So maybe if you watch that, I'll try and I just love high fiving the crowds. It builds us up. I think it builds me up to have them there. They're just supporting strangers, but to me it's helpful. And there's this little boy who stuck his hand, and I'd already ran past, and I felt I needed to go back. It was crazy though. The whole crowd started to cheer because I turned around to give this kid a high, and I turned around 2 feet. It wasn't like I ran back, but I just kind of stopped and high-fived. But for those of you who have run, my whole body almost went into a complete seizure, because when you're just like chugging, and then all of a sudden you like stop and change directions, and I was like, whoa, everything started to grab. But by that point, I had like 100 yards, and then it was just mind over matter. I got to see my family and hear them cheering, and which has always been one of my favorite parts. They've been very supportive, always at the finish line to cheer me on. And then you cross the finish line, and that was the second. So here's the second thing of all the time. So got my slowest time of all, and I apologize for those of you who are listening. It's all relative in perspective. I know I got a 3:46, which to some is super slow, and to others they're like, I would love to get a 3:46. But for me, that was my slowest time. That just it is what it is, as they say. But here's the crazy part. This is the first race I never walked, other than I walked through the aid stations. That's always kind of been my thing. I'll walk through because I can't drink and run at the same time, right? I'm trying to drink, so I just say I'm going to walk for a few steps, and that's what I've always done. So I walk through the aid stations, but other than that, I've always there's been a point where my body goes into just complete and utter seizure, kind of like with the when I went to high five the kid. But it never happened. This time it was my slowest, but I just kept going. that pace up, made it to the finish line. And so those were my two really interesting thoughts. That was the first time I ever thought I wouldn't finish, and yet the first time that I never stopped. And so then I just had another prayer of thanks, another thought of thanks to my God who helped me. Again, whatever your beliefs are, I felt very strongly that there were forces that were helping me to get there. And then I can say post-race was completely horrible. Usually I have this moment, I have about a 15-minute window. And again, for those of you who don't want to run, don't listen to this part because this is just mine. Every time I run, I have like a 15-minute window. And I am a healthy guy. I always try to, I say I don't drink a lot of soda, but during this time, this 15 minutes, I can go and grab a Coke and it will settle down my stomach, because otherwise, if I wait too long, I like buckle over and I am just in this hunched up for like 45 minutes to an hour. But if I can drink a little Coke, then it stops my stomach from revolting against me, and so I can do it. And I go to grab the Coke, and before I even have the Coke, my stomach has already started. Like I'm buckling over as I'm walking, trying to figure out what's going on, and it just hit. I didn't have my 15-minute window at all. It was like almost instantaneous. I had like a 2-minute window, and another cool part. This is what I call a tender mercy. I like to say at the finish line. I'll try and have this in the recording. A young man who I worked with in the past, and I've lost track of him, but I'd sacrificed a lot of time to be with him and help him and his family, and they meant a lot. He was the one who I saw. He's the one who gives me my medal. And so I don't know if you can hear it. Well, I'll have it muted, but I say, his name's Tyson. I go, Tyson, medal me, and get to give him a hug. Just a great kid, and so that was really fun to have him there and to do that. And but then fast forward again, and I'm like dying. I'm able to walk back to the van, and then I get home, and I have to take a shower, seated. I've got this little stool. I'm showering, trying to, because I can't stand up. And then I lay in my bed and I'm out until my stomach stops. And then once it stops, I'm good for the day. So that's my race report. I know it may sound horrible, but the cool part is the lessons that I learned from that. And I've learned a lot. I'm actually trying to write too. That's a new thing for me. And all my high school writing teachers and high school professors that did any writing with me know that's not my strong suit. But I'm trying to strengthen that. And I'm trying to write something right now. It's taken me a while, but lessons learned from running. And I'm going to add some to this one. But this is an obvious lesson, I feel. But it is, that when you feel you can't go any further, you can. There's always something left. And there are forces involved in our lives that we sometimes can't explain, but they're there, and they can help us. And there was forces outside of just me that pushed me to the finish line. That I was stronger than I thought, and yeah, this was a special one for me. I'll always remember this 9th marathon as one of the toughest, most difficult, most problematic marathons that I've done, but lessons learned that I know about myself, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm stronger than I think, and I believe that all of you out there listening are as well. And so I hope that you can do something, whether it's a marathon, whether it's just life in general, to push forward, that you're stronger than you think. and you can do it. So go out there and do it. And as I like to say, be healthier today than you were yesterday, healthier tomorrow than you were today. And if you do that, you'll be happy and you'll have a lot of joy in your health, spiritually, mentally, and physically. This is Dr. Traveler, and I am signing out.